So Shashi talked about this architecture, and if you look at, I'll go a little deeper into that. At the bottom of it, you see Nile services in Edge portfolio, and that includes our hardware, access points, switches, distribution switches, sensors, and the gateways. And this is in-house built. This is our own hardware, our own software that we built in, and this is enterprise-grade hardware, high-performance, secured service that we are trying to deliver, and this forms the Zero Trust fabric. And when you think of delivering as a service, you have to build it for scale. You cannot really build network operations center with lots of people monitoring and managing it. You need to build it, when you think of self-driving car, it needs to run on its own. So you need lots of sensors, lots of data that's coming in real time, it's processing it and taking care of it. So the reason we built our own hardware and the software is anything and everything that you ever needed to know about your hardware, about your software, your processes, and your data plane, control plane, management plane. And more importantly, when you think of a car, it needs to monitor the road conditions. Similarly, we have sensors that monitor the conditions around the network. So you need to monitor voltage fluctuations, power fluctuations, cabling situations, cable twists, and electromagnetic interference, that anything and everything that can interrupt the network operations to have a seamless connectivity. So that data is coming in real time to the cloud. And our AI and what we call is NXI, Nile Experience Intelligence. This is our core brain of the system, if you want to think of it that way, that processes this data in real time and automatically using closed loop automation commands to the network and takes action. And when you take an action, how do you know that the action is successful? So we built agents. That agents, what they do is constantly check from the end user perspective and from the network perspective, did every user and device connect to the network? After you make the change, do they have equal or better experience? So we have 50 different parameters that we look at your experience and make sure that any change, every change that we have done is successful. If not, you have the Gen AI that will explain in a plain English to our production network engineering team. It's a small team that we have, and it will give you needle in the haystack and explain in plain English so that they can take quick action. And then they automate it, and then we roll it out to every customer out there. On the right side, you see Nile Customer Portal. So unlike an MSP, you have complete control on this service. I want to clarify that. When you think of network as a service, it's not an MSP, it's not outsourcing it. Instead, you have the complete control and visibility. How do you want your users' devices to get onto the network? What should they access? So you will have complete visibility control, and we have third-party integrations. So you want to integrate with your NOC systems or SOC systems, you can integrate with that. So this led to developing a lot of a catalog of services. So on the network side, you have the access service. Access is wired and wireless, access layer, distribution layer, core layer, or entire campus. And more importantly, we have the edge where you can directly terminate internet on Nile Service Fabric or Zero Trust Fabric itself. So you have the complete stack. And the other one is creative one and very innovative is the guest service. So when you think of guest, when a guest connects to the network, you have to make sure the guest can only go to the internet. So automatically, our Zero Trust Fabric, when guest is connected, it takes the traffic, tunnels to point of POP locations, and sends it to the internet automatically without customer configuring guest VLANs or tunnels or any of those things. And you have URL filtering, IP reputation, make sure that guests can do only activities that they can do. So it guarantees guests can ever get into corporate network, and guests cannot see any other guest on the network. And then we have the other network services like DHCP. It's a post-secured cloud-based DHCP service. And we have the radio service, again, cloud-based secured service. And more importantly, we have the trust service, which is the micro-segmentation and fine granular control. For example, Suresh can print, but Suresh has no reason to log into a printer. So typically employees can print, but only IT team can log into the printer. So our trust service gives you that level of micro-segmentation and granular controls so that you can allow exactly what you need to do on your network. With that, let's talk about, over the last several years, I talked to a lot of CIOs and CISOs and Fortune 500 customers. And all of these are saying that securing, as Shashi said, the LAN is your biggest surface area of attack. It's been extremely hard. One of the customers on Wall Street said, we have 3 separate networks, one for the employees, one for the guest, one for the IoT. And one local customer here in Silicon Valley, and it's a security customer, frankly, security vendor, and they do not give access to wired networks for their employees because they realize they can secure wireless, but they cannot secure wired network. So because you have this separate set of solutions for wired and wireless, they think IoT, as you guys know, 80% of the enterprise assets are outside of the IT control, 80%. So that includes devices controlled by the lines of businesses, that includes IT and OT devices. And they put all the IoT devices, all these devices into a single VLAN, hoping that nobody can penetrate into that. So that's the challenge you're facing. And why is that happening? If you look at how the networks were built in the beginning, networks were built to communicate with each other. Then we came up with VLANs to limit the broadcast. Then we came up with the private VLANs, where you can isolate every user from every other user. So when you think of private VLANs, one of the local customer here, Fortune 500 customer, they said it took 2 man years to really have a per host isolation in the entire network. 2 man years. And imagine that. And anytime they make a change, it's extremely brittle, it fails. So the 80% of the enterprise assets are not really being protected, even though you might have other solutions for user-based devices. And then other one is, so we started with VLANs, private VLANs, dynamic VLANs. When NAC introduced, we came up with dynamic VLANs. Then we came up with the ACLs, who can talk to whom, and then dynamic ACLs, then glorified ACLs, which turned into firewall and evolved, then NAC solutions. Look at the number of techniques and technologies and appliances that you have to manage in order to secure your network. On top of that, you need to secure the network itself. So you came up with the TACACs, and you need to secure the systems, you need to secure the ports. And lately, you probably have seen some solutions coming out in order to protect IT and OT devices using overlay solutions. Another appliance where you bring in all the traffic and using /32s or different mechanisms and apply the policies. So you can see that it's built over the last 30, 40 years. And we said, when you think of network as a service, it's our responsibility to secure your users' devices, and it's our responsibility to secure the infrastructure that we're delivering it as a service. So we need to make sure that network, today, 60% of the cybersecurity attacks leverage network as the weakest link because you have vulnerabilities and lateral movement of malware. And the next one is, we talked about, you have separate solutions for the wired, separate solutions for the wireless, separate solutions for the IoT. You have all these disjointed solutions. And as all of you know, when you walk into a building, connecting Ethernet port, you are on the VLAN, you're on the network. It's almost impossible to secure the ports on the Ethernet ports. So there's an implicit trust. Depending on where the VLAN is, you connect to it, you have automatically belong to that particular group. And securing the IT, OT device has been a challenge. And so what we said, we need to really address all of these challenges. And said we need to unify the networking and security. We truly integrate the networking and security where, why do we need to allow communication between the two devices? In this day and age, all your applications go to the cloud or to the SaaS or to the internet or to your data center. So the need for the local communication has come down significantly. So we said, security first, communicate later. So you need to flip the entire paradigm upside down and say that we need to have the security built in by day one. So we integrated the network and security, which I'll go into more details on. And you need to really have one policy engine that goes across all types of users, like employees, partners, guests, contactors, all types of the devices, IT, OT, and IoT devices. You need a single policy engine. You cannot have multiple policy engines and layers of appliances. And more importantly, one of the basic zero trust principles is explicit trust. You cannot have any device that connects to it without having the trust. Whether it's a user device or an IoT device, you have to have an explicit trust. Until then, they cannot get onto the network and they cannot access anything else. And other one, as we said, in the traditional world, you have the VLAN based, but here it has to be identity based. It cannot be based on IP addresses, based on subnets. It has to be identity. So when you think of users, you have the identity in your Active Directory. You know the groups, what groups you belong to. When you think of the IT and OT other devices, you have device fingerprinting that tells you what type of the devices are those on your network. So you have to use this identity, to provide the security. And we talked to one of the banks on Wall Street. They're trying to refresh the network, and the best is they're looking at the best they can do macro segmentation. One VLAN for employees, one for the guest, one for the IT, OT devices. It's really, at the best, they're getting macro segmentation. They're not really able to accomplish micro segmentation. So this is when we came up with the Zero Trust Fabric. It's extremely simple. When you look at the fabric components on the bottom, you have the sensors. These are the sensors that act like end users, monitoring the network from security perspective as well as the performance perspective. You have the access points, Wi-Fi 6, Wi-Fi 6E, Wi-Fi 7, high performance access points. access switches, distribution switches, core switches. This entire fabric is layer 3 only. There's no layer 2, no more VLANs, no more configuration of the ports, no more configuration of the systems, no more configuration of protocols. We eliminated all of that. This is a complete layer 3 only. And what you see at the end on the top is, this fabric, Zero Trust fabric, can scale from extremely small, where you can have just the access layer. So it's not all or nothing with Nile. Just want to clarify that it's not about all or nothing. It's really, you can grow along as your needs grow. You can start with the access layer, or you can extend it to the distribution layer, and you can extend it all the way to the entire campus. So it can grow as you need. And at the end of it, you see fabric gateways. These are the gateways that connect to your existing network or terminate your ISP links. And all the traffic from every user and device gets to the policy enforcement. These are our fabric gateways. Before any device can communicate to any other device, you have to go through the policy. Policy has to allow you to communicate. Only then you're allowed to go to the rest of the world. Until then, you cannot connect to the network. So if you look at it, that native access control, it's not a separate, not a separate appliance. It's built in. So the access control is natively part of the Zero Trust fabric. And then I talked about guest service. So our fabric intelligently, when you think of the guest, takes the traffic, funnels the traffic to the internet, pops, and sends it to the internet. Guarantees they can ever get into corporate network. And more importantly, when you're on the network, and assuming that you got authentication to get onto the network, by default, you deny, you cannot go anywhere. You have micro-segmentation, fine granular controls that gives you the access, whether you're allowed to go to the internet, whether you're allowed to access anything local resources on the network. So quickly, if you want to compare.
Can I ask you a question if you go back for just a minute? So with Zero Trust, right, there's the default denial, I love that. There's the policy enforcement when you go to access a resource. I love that. I get that. I like the fact it sounds like you're not just I allow IP to IP, but you're looking at ports and protocols. I love that. There's also this idea of context and conditions. What else do I know about that device in my policy?
Yes.
What are some of those additional aspects that you're checking on a device or an identity before you're allowing them on the network?
Sure. There are many contextual factors we take in. Since we're access layer, we look at the type of the device you're using.
Yep.
Not just your identity, but the type of device. Hey, typically you come on Mac device, but today you're on a Windows device. That kind of adds to the security. Typically you connect between 8 to 5, but now it's the middle of the night. Typically you connect at a certain location, but you're at a different location. So that's one type of the context. Second type of the context is we can integrate with your MDMs, Intunes of the world, or EDRs like CrowdStrikes of the world to get the posture or additional information about that particular device. Right? So you can as part of the policy, you can define all of these additional attributes, conditions. Only when these conditions matter, you're allowed to access this particular application or particular device.
So you said something earlier about a blast radius of 1.
Mm.
I've on my Windows device, and during normal business hours, I log in. I start working, but for whatever reason, like I'm no longer in policy with Intune. I've changed something on my device, or CrowdStrike notices that I'm running some software that I haven't run. Are you able to isolate the host in session?
Yeah. So we automatically, when that posture fails or a condition fails, we put you in a separate quarantine segment. And the quarantine group or a segment can give you limited access. Let's say you want to upgrade your software. So you should be able to go to certain sites and upgrade your software. So we'll show you some of those details as part of the use cases.
All right, thank you.
Before you move on, I agree. I mean, the tool set is a challenge, but it's not the only challenge, right? So one of the biggest challenges to get down to this micro-segmentation level of control is understanding what the policy should be, not just the ability to implement the policy itself. Do you provide any tools about visibility or discovery or helping your customers figure out what that policy should be?
So the answer is yes. So as we go through the demos, we'll be able to show you some of the information. And more importantly, you will also in the closed session, we'll share the roadmap on how can we automatically do the policies for you. What does it mean? How do we decide it? Because we have hundreds of customers, so we can understand based on the device, based on the user, based on the type of the group the user belongs to, we can provide you automated policies as well.
Okay, thanks.
So quick comparison with the current world versus Nile world, all right? So if you look at in the traditional world and what you have today is, layer 2, pretty much VLANs. And we had a customer, one of the automakers, and they ran into a broadcast storm. Even today, you see broadcast loops happening. Like one of the customers in Austin, Texas, they connected 2 Ethernet ports on the front and caused the broadcast storm and brought down the network for 4 hours. It was almost impossible for them to go and debug the problem. With layer 3, we eliminated all of that. We don't even have the stacking protocol. You can stack as many switches as you want using layer 3. And like when you think of the walking into a building, 99% of the times you can go walk into a building and connect to an Ethernet port or on the network, because every port is by default, it's open. It's extremely hard to secure wired ports. In our case, every port is secured by default. You have to get authenticated, authorized to get onto the network. VLANs at the best give you micro segmentation, and you heard of the VRFs too, right? So I was talking to a university customer, and they have about 160 VRFs. Enterprises have 5, 6 to 10 to 20, 30 VRFs. It's almost impossible to really make that work. So people are trying to do segmentation, and extremely hard. With Nile, it's identity-based micro-segmentation. So you can define the policy groups based on your identity, working with your Active Directory, define the policy groups, and you can define the specific access policies they're allowed to do it. And we'll show you as part of the demos. And by default, as soon as user connects, if you think of a VLAN, I can see every device on the VLAN, and I can propagate the malware. With Nile, you are isolated from everyone else, and only when it's authorized, and based on the policy, you're allowed to access rest of that. Now, so we talked about Zero Trust Fabric protecting all your users, your employees, guests and partners, and we talked about your IT and IoT and devices as well. But more importantly, you need to protect the fabric itself from the attacks. So whenever a user gets, laptop gets compromised, first thing is they discover the network topology, and they discover all the resources connected to the network. Then they propagate the malware. In our case, we needed to make sure that that won't happen. So by default, the fabric itself is secured. Every hardware device that we built comes with a TPM with a secure boot. So when a device gets manufactured, comes to the customer site, if the hardware or the software gets compromised, the box will not even come up. And more importantly, we always run the latest software. We are the network as a service provider. We roll out based on your maintenance windows, based on restricted windows. We automatically roll out the software to make sure you always have the latest software, latest security patch. As you guys know, that's extremely difficult to do in today's world. It requires a lot of resources, a lot of time, a lot of validation. We eliminate all of that for you. And
Suresh, just on that real quick, do we have control over that? Because some environments obviously don't want or can't have automated software updates.
Yeah, especially if they're in set patch windows, like not what I do now, but when previous roles, like when you're doing patch deployments or Windows updates or whatever it be, and patching your servers and boxes, they have to do it like maybe 10 at a time and then 15. Like they do it in like 4 set increments instead of just pushing it. How does that?
Sure. So let me answer multiple aspects of Kerry. First of all, yes, you do have control on it. So you give us a maintenance windows. You can also give a restricted window. So maintenance window Friday midnight or Saturday midnight 2 to 4 a.m., for example, and it's based on your local time. Or you can say, do not touch anything from Thanksgiving to New Year, first, Happy New Year, to the New Year, so that we don't do any of the changes. That's one. Second is, the way we do the software upgrades is first, we have M1 through M5. So first, we always deploy within our Nile networks and make sure everything is working. Then we have alpha customers. We make sure everything is working there. When we say we make sure, we have the agents that are making sure every deployment that we have done, every user and device is connected back, they have equal or better experience. Then we have the beta customers. Then we have the vertical specific alpha customers. Only then we roll it out to the mass first. So you do have control, and it goes to lots of checks and balances. And even well before do that, as we mentioned, we always start with any network at customer site with a digital twin in the cloud. And we first look at the digital twin. We do all our operations on the digital twin to make sure that when we go and do the software upgrade, it is successful. So to your point, answer is yes, but we also go through lots of checks and balances with using some of the AI agents that we have to ensure that the software upgrade is successful.
Is this just like server patching, or is this also third-party patching?
So this is about our access points, our switches, distribution switches, and the gateways, the entire Zero Trust Fabric, the network side of the patching we are talking about.
So just real quick, just to expand on it, if we have a regulated environment, think of a pharmaceutical, they have to qualify every version update. They can't just decide that it's going to roll out.
Sure.
How do you work in that environment?
So we inform the customers in advance. a few days in advance, and depending on the customer type, and customers can choose, I do want it, I do not want it. And if needed, we can sit down with the customer and talk to them to give the confidence that this is something that they're okay with it.
Perfect.
And more importantly, when you think of the fabric, we came up with the TAC, we came up with the system ports, port security. We eliminated all of that. There's no access into our network elements. There's no configuration port, no management port, no telnet and SSH. If I can log into box, someone else can log into it. There's no matter what we do. So we eliminated, because anything and everything you ever needed to know, we have the data in the cloud. That's the key. And then, the fabric, when we are deploying it, we start with the digital twin as designed. When you're deploying it, we make sure that the deployment aligns with the digital twin that we created. So there is you cannot introduce a third party because there's a mutual auth, and it also aligns with what we designed in the cloud. Okay. So every device has a mutual auth, and more importantly, the communication between our systems and the cloud is secured using gRPC or TLS, and the communication between our systems, depending on the model you choose, we have the MACsec. So from the access point all the way till exit the Nile service block, the traffic is encrypted end to end. So even if you try to tap the wire, you'll get encrypted traffic. So now let's talk about a specific use case. We were talking to one of the Fortune 500 customers, and they told us their office users are less secure than remote users. When you think of that, right? Because as Shashi was talking about return to office, when people are coming in from personal environments coming here, now suddenly they're exposed to the rest of the organization, devices or other users. And this is where they've been trying to use NaaS solutions, but 60% of the cybersecurity attacks leverage network vulnerabilities and do the lateral movement of malware. And the customer was not able to do microsegmentation with Zero Trust Fabric, and almost all the CIOs and CISOs talk to, they want to see the right side of the picture, where you have the security for all users, all devices, and all the east-west is protected. But anything that's going up to applications in the data centers or in the cloud, they need to go through SSC. So we provide you seamless integrations with all of the SSC providers, whether it's Zscaler, Palo Alto, Prisma Access, or Microsoft and other players. And seamlessly, and you can select what kind of traffic that can go to the SSC providers before they go to the applications. With that, just to summarize everything that we talked about, we are able to unify the networking and security, so it's completely integrated, and it's across all the wired and wireless users and devices. And with integrations with SSC, we can deliver the complete end-to-end security. And more importantly, simplification. We eliminated all your VLANs. We eliminated private VLANs. We eliminated configurations, the port level security, the system level security. You don't need to configure any of those things. We eliminated lots of appliances, overlay solutions that you needed to do it. And we brought in microsegmentation. It's built in. It's for your IT devices and OT devices as well as for users. And more importantly, single pane of glass. You don't have multiple pane of glasses from multiple vendors, multiple situations. And automated. Using AI, we're able to deliver this seamless service. With that, this led to a lot of innovations, as you can imagine. We are the only one in the industry, and we're the only one, and we're the first one in the industry to deliver truly unified and wired and wireless. Kerry, you've been in the industry for long enough. We've been trying to unify the wired and wireless for the last 20 years. Frankly, it hasn't happened yet, right? This is the first time we are bringing unified wired and wireless, and we're also bringing simplification on the authentication purpose. Doing the .1x on the wired is almost impossible, very difficult. We brought in single sign-on. Think of how you get onto an application. Use single sign-on. Why can the network be considered as an application? So when you connect to Ethernet plug, automatically you get a single sign-on page with a dual-factor authentication. You're on the network. That's the first innovation. And secured guest service. Almost all of our customers use this guest service, where it guarantees that traffic is going only to the internet without them doing anything. Built-in microsegmentation, as we talked about. And specifically, the Zero Trust Fabric, where we, by default, we bring in all the Zero Trust capabilities, and default deny, which is extremely hard to accomplish today, and segment of one, to your point, right? Every device is the blast radius. If it is compromised, it's limited to that particular device, and it cannot go anywhere else unless there is a policy that allows them to go to that.
With SSO, what protocols are you using?
So let's say when you connect to the network, right, whether wired and wireless, we connect with your Oktas of the world or ping identities of the world using via SAML, right? If you're talking about protocol, we use a SAML and we connect with them and we authenticate. And if you use second factor authentication, passwordless mechanisms, you can use any of those because it's seamless for the Nile.
So if I'm thinking again about zero trust, at that identity layer, I can run that through my Okta policy. I can run that through my Microsoft conditional policy because you're basically doing IDP handoff.
That's right. Exactly.
I have a quick question about the use of AI agents at scale and using digital twins. So how do you prevent decision fatigue, and where do you have to have human oversight in place if I'm a customer?
Sure. So that's a great point, Marian. First of all, can you really trust the AI automatically? The answer is no. You should never trust that automatically because even if it is 1% wrong, you do not want to bring down the network for that 1% of the time. So it's a critical infrastructure. So what happens, Marian, is, we have the, as I talked about AI, ML, and Gen AI, which explain in plain English to our production network engineers. They look at the recommendation, then they automate it, they test it, make sure it is working, and we deploy it in few places, and then we automate it. We do not automate at the first stance when the AI recommends it. So after that, it's completely automated. Now you can scale across the globe.
Okay. And then you offer professional services to help with that, mapping the process before automation?
So, Marian, there are two sides. One is if you think of anything inside the Zero Trust fabric, we automatically handle that. And to add your question, definitely we have professional services for multiple purposes. One is, when you're trying to deploy the network, and when you want to migrate from your existing network to Nile, we have the professional services that will help you to, migrate to Nile very easily.